As part of the Magnus 900 celebrations, Primary 4 have been learning the story of St Magnus. We worked in small groups to rewrite the story in our own words and then designed our own backgrounds to illustrate this. We hope you enjoy listening to our version of the story.
The Vikings came from Norway in hope of finding new farming land. So when they saw Orkney, they thought it would be great land for farming. They kept cows, sheep and goats and grew oats, barley and cabbages. The Vikings were pirates as well, and in spring and autumn they went off on their long ships to Scotland.
Orkney had always had an earl who was in charge of everybody else. Magnus was one of the earls who became very famous after he was killed, and Earl Ronald, Magnus's nephew, decided to build St Magnus Cathedral in his memory.
Magnus was a big believer in God. He was different from other Vikings because he was a Christian and did not believe in violence. He didn't like fighting and would rather sit and read a book and sing hymns instead.
Magnus had a cousin, Hakon, who was very different to Magnus. Hakon thought he was special and was a bit big-headed because he was related to the King of Norway, and he felt he was better than Magnus and the others. He loved to fight and was always causing trouble.
Hakon was quite a bully and did not get on well with Magnus. So Hakon and Magnus were often arguing and falling out. As they got older, they became bigger and bigger enemies, and their friends and relatives became involved. It looked like a war was going to break out.
Given Hakon was such a troublemaker, it was felt by the farmers of Orkney that it would be best for him to leave Orkney. Earl Paul, Hakon's father, therefore sent Hakon to Norway, where he had to stay for many years.
After Hakon left, things did calm down, but Hakon wasn't happy and wanted revenge.
Several years later, Hakon returned to Orkney, this time with King Magnus Bearlegs of Orkney. Hakon had put ideas into King Magnus Bearlegs' head by saying he should invade Orkney and Shetland. King Magnus Bearlegs thought this was a good idea, but did tell Hakon that things might not turn out the way he expected things to work out if he did so. Hakon decided to say no more about it, but King Magnus Bearleg had taken the idea and went with it.
Right enough, things didn't work out as Hakon had thought when King Magnus Bearlegs took control of Orkney. King Magnus sent Hakon's father and Magnus's father to Norway and made his son Sigurd Earl instead. Sigurd was only 8 years old and couldn't do it on his own, so he had some advisors who helped him with this.
Both Earl Paul and Earl Erland died in Norway within a year of being sent there and never saw their sons again. King Magnus Bearlegs took Magnus and Hakon to Scotland and made Magnus his cupbearer. Hakon had wanted to rule Orkney with his father, but this was not to be.
When the fleet reached North Wales, Magnus would not fight. King Magnus Bearlegs was furious because he was looking forward to fighting the Normans and accused Magnus of being a coward. He told Magnus to get below deck, but Magnus refused and instead he sang songs on deck.
The king attacked their herbities and made them promise to obey the king of Norway in future.
As they moved along the west coast of Scotland, their attacks left burning houses and crying people.
The battle was violently fought between the ships, but Magnus did not get so much as a scratch. There were great celebrations, but King Magnus Bearlegs was furious with Magnus. Other Vikings whispered this story from ship to ship. Did you see him? He just sat there singing hymns. Perhaps that's why we won.
A couple of days later, the ships grew near the Scottish coast again. Magnus thought that this would be his chance to make an escape from King Magnus Bearlegs before the king could kill him. Magnus put stuff in his bed to make it look as if he was still in it. Then he jumped off the boat and swam for land. When Magnus got to shore, he ran till he could run no more. He had cuts on his head where the branches had hit him and his feet were sore. Eventually, he climbed into a tree and fell asleep.
The next thing he knew, he was woken up by dogs barking. The king had sent bloodhounds out to look for him. Magnus kept quiet and prayed that he wouldn't be found. Suddenly, there was a dog beneath the tree he was in. He took a big branch and threw it as hard as he could and hit the dog, which then ran away.
It was not safe for Magnus to be taken to Orkney or anywhere under the rules of King Magnus Barelegs, so he went to Edinburgh to see King Melkor of Scotland. King Melkor was pleased to see Magnus, and he hated King Magnus Barelegs too, because he was stealing all his islands on the west coast of Scotland from him.
Sometime later, Magnus got news that King Magnus Barelegs was dead, and his cousin Hakon had been made Earl of Orkney. So Magnus thought it would be a good time to go home and claim part of earldom that his father had had previously.
Hakon had been waiting for years to be Earl of Orkney, all by himself, so was not looking forward to Magnus to return to share the power. Then Hakon got the news that Magnus had come home to Orkney. Magnus went to Hakon and asked him for half the earldom. However, Hakon refused. So Magnus went to Norway and asked King Eystein and King Olaf for half the earldom.
The kings of Norway agreed that Orkney should be split between Hakon and Magnus. Hakon was not happy about this, but he agreed and half the islands were given to Magnus. So Earl Magnus and Earl Hakon ruled Orkney together. And for a while it seemed to go well, almost like when their fathers Paul and Erland were the earls.
Hakon had been encouraged by some of his men, who were troublemakers, to fight for total control over Orkney, so Hakon decided to get rid of Magnus. He put his plan into action and arranged a meeting with Magnus to talk about what they were going to do.
Most of the men wanted peace to continue and suggested that Magnus and Hakon should shake hands and not fight. It would not have been good for Orkney if a civil war had broken out. So it was suggested by Hakon that he and Magnus should meet in Anglesey to discuss what was to happen. It was decided that they should meet in Anglesey because this was where the bishop lived, and the land belonged to the church, and was therefore neutral, being ruled neither by Hakon nor Magnus.
Hakon and Magnus promised to only take 2 ships each, and they agreed to meet just after Easter. Magnus's men were not keen because they did not trust Hakon. However, Magnus and his men set off as agreed with 2 ships. It was a flat, calm day with no wind, so the men had to row across to Anglesey.
However, on the way to Anglesey, a gigantic wave suddenly came out of nowhere and splashed the boat and soaked Magnus. Magnus believed that this was a clear sign that he was going to be betrayed and killed by Hakon. His men tried to persuade him to go back. However, Magnus refused to do this, saying if it was God's will, then that was what had to happen.
When Magnus landed on Anglesey, he went straight to the church and spent the night praying. In the morning, Magnus and his men saw that Hakon had come prepared for battle and had taken 8 ships with warriors instead of 2 as they had agreed. Magnus's men offered to hide him or fight for him, but Magnus would not allow this.
Hakon and his men soon arrived and Magnus let them capture him. Magnus knew that breaking a vow was not something that was accepted by Vikings, and he wanted to give Hakon an alternative to make things worse and killing him. He therefore gave Hakon 3 alternative options, which were to send him away from Orkney on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, to brand him or maim him, or to lock him up somewhere in Scotland. with some of his friends. Hakan would have been happy for Magnus to be locked up and blinded, but the men said they had enough fighting and one of them had to die. Hakan replied to this by saying that Magnus would have to die because he had a lot of living still to do.
Hakan did not want to be the person who killed Magnus, so he asked the standard bearer to do this. However, the standard bearer was very angry at having been asked to do such a thing and refused to do it. No one else would kill Magnus, so it was decided that the cook Leafoff should kill Magnus. Leafoff did not want to kill Magnus and burst into tears. However, Magnus reassured him and told him he would forgive him because it was not his will. He only asked for Leafoff to kill him properly and hit him hard on the forehead because he didn't want to be beheaded like a common thief.
When Magnus was dead, the men stood silently around Magnus's body. Hakan broke the silence by saying they needed to bury him. They put Magnus in a hole, then they put rocks on top of him. Then Hakan and his men sailed back to Ham, where they were to have a feast to celebrate the peace talks. Magnus's mother knew when Magnus wasn't there that he must be dead and that he had been betrayed. When Hakan had finished his meal, she asked if she could have Magnus's body and take it to the church to be buried properly. Hakan agreed to this.
Magnus was taken to Christ Kirk in Bursey and buried there next to his grandfather. However, this wasn't the last everyone was going to hear about Magnus. Few people said they had seen Magnus in a vision, while others said they had seen a bright light over his tomb and smelled a beautiful scent as they passed by. People began to pray near Magnus' tomb, and then miracles began to happen.
After Magnus's death, Hakan just wanted to forget about what happened, but this wasn't possible. He was reminded daily by all the miracles that were happening, and he also had dreams about Magnus. Eventually, Hakan couldn't take it any longer, so he went to the Holy Land to ask for forgiveness for having killed Magnus. He bathed in the river Jordan, and when he came back to Orkney, he was very different and ruled Orkney peacefully for the rest of his life.
Given the miracles that were happening, many people believed that Magnus should be made a saint. However, the Bishop William wouldn't agree to this. It was only after the bishop was struck blind and had his sight restored after praying to St Magnus that he agreed to make Magnus a saint.
Magnus's bones were taken from Bursey and were originally placed above the high altar in St Olave's Kirk, which would have been where Bridge Street in Kirkwall is now. When Magnus's nephew Earl Ronald built the cathedral in Magnus's memory, his bones were then moved and kept there. They are still there today.
Thank you for listening to our story about St Magnus. We hope you enjoyed it.